Well, Diane, I don't know. It seemed like a good idea when I had it. It's probably also good for us to learn from kids and whatever. Okay. Our gospel reading today comes from Mark chapter 7, verses 24 through 37. Listen now and see if you hear a word from God. From there he set out and went away to the region of Tyre. He entered a house and did not want anyone to know he was there. Yet he could not escape notice. But a woman whose little daughter had an unclean spirit immediately heard about him, and she came and bowed down at his feet. Now the woman was a Gentile of Syrophoenician origin. She begged him to cast the demon out of her daughter. He said to her, "Let the children be fed first, for it is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs." But she answered him, "Sir, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs." Then he said to her, "For saying that, you may go. The demon has left your daughter." So she went home, found the child lying in a bed, and the demon gone. Then he returned to the region of Tyre and went by the way of Sidon towards the Sea of Galilee in the region of the Decapolis. They brought to him a deaf man who had an impediment in his speech, and they begged him to lay his hand on him. He took him aside in private, away from the crowd, and put his fingers into his ear, and he spat and touched his tongue. Then, looking up to heaven, he sighed and said to him, "Ephphatha," that is, "be opened." And immediately his ears were opened, his tongue was released, and he spoke plainly. Then Jesus ordered them to tell no one, but the more he ordered them, the more zealously they proclaimed it. They were astounded beyond measure, saying, "He has done everything well. He makes the deaf to hear and the mute to speak." This is the word of the Lord. I'm going to start with a question. Have any of you ever been so tired that you just wanted to escape from whatever it was and go into a house and be left alone and take a nap and not be bothered? Yesterday, Sluggo had the pure pleasure of watching Faye last night. What is that like? Motherhood brings that out in me a lot. There are those moments where I'm like, I just need 4 minutes without you saying, "Mama, mama, 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 mama," right? Sometimes our work can bring that out in us, or our volunteering gigs, or whatever it is, right? And when we have that experience, and there's one more mama, 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 how do we usually respond? With our highest self or our lowest self? I try really hard to keep my cool as a mother, but every once in a while I'm like, "Faye, enough. Enough." Or I'll just resort to Faye, 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 right? Probably not my highest self. I do not like the story from today's gospel. I don't like it for a variety of reasons. I don't like it because we have Jesus too tired to help a woman whose child is ill. I get it. He just wants a nap. He just wants to be left alone. He can't take another rabbi. And when the Gentile woman shows up with her child, or shows up to ask in this one for help with her child, how does he respond? You could actually answer. I know, like the Frozen Chosen or whatever, but he responds not with his highest self, I think. I don't like this because it's not the Jesus I want to imagine. This gentle, all-giving, all-loving guy who helps everyone, right? The Gentile woman shows up and needs help with her daughter, and he gives her this riddle. Let the children be fed first, for it is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs. In other versions of this story, he says an unkind word to her that would have been the equivalent of a racial epithet. I don't like the Jesus we get in today's story. Because the Jesus in today's story seems too much like me. I also don't like today's story because I don't like the way that theologians have historically interpreted it. We're so uncomfortable with the idea that Jesus might have had a bad moment that we kind of try to massage it away. I was looking at the video for the curriculum for the kids that goes with the story. It's a beautiful video, has a wonderful takeaway. It's a perfect sermon. I could have just shown it to you. It's 3 minutes long and you would have left probably with better than what you're going to get from me. But what I don't like about the video is it says, Jesus said this thing, but Jesus was trying to test her. Where in the text does it say Jesus was trying to test her? We're uncomfortable with this story, so historically, theologians and pastors and priests have made up excuses for Jesus. And we say, oh, it was just a test. But if that's the case, then do we have to worry about God testing us in our everyday pleas? And why would it be that he tested her, but not the guy who couldn't speak right? It's okay if there are stories in the Bible, even if there are stories about Jesus that don't sit well with you. It's okay. This one does not sit well with me. This one is also complicated because we have this interaction with Jesus and the Gentile woman, right? So he says, let the children be fed first. It's not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs. So most people think that's some sort of riddle or metaphor to describe that he's come to serve the Jewish people, right? Jesus is a what? Is he a Christian? Is he a Presbyterian? This is the easy points. No. He's a Jew, right? And who are his disciples? They're Jews. And who is he primarily serving? Jews. So most people interpret this statement as a statement of, I came to serve and show the light to my people. I don't have time for this. How often do we feel that way? I have those days all the time. I've got 10,000 things I've got to do at my own church. I can't help with that. I've got 10,000 things to do in this project. I can't be working on that, right? Faye, I need to write a sermon. I can't find her else a doll, whatever it is. That's what he's saying here. But when she responds, sir, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. He says, for saying that, you may go. The demon has left your daughter. So the interpretation we're usually given is her faith made her well, which we hear in other stories, right? The woman comes, asks him for a favor. He wants a nap. She argues back, your faith has made you well. Maybe it was a test. Maybe it was just to make sure she actually believed he could heal, whatever it is. It's this tension between the idea of helping someone and actually helping someone. So many of us want to help people. We have the idea that we should help people, but we're just too tired. We don't think those people are our problem to deal with. So instead, we send out our thoughts and prayers. In this story, I think what's happening is the woman comes and asks for help, and he's just too tired, but he can't offer thoughts and prayers. And then she challenges him to actually do something. I want us to think about that in conversation with our James text today. When I was a kid growing up in the church, I grew up in a Presbyterian church with a Presbyterian father who was born in the 30s, so he really believed in work. Some of you may resonate with that, right? Farmer from the 30s really believed in work. The day after my mother died, he sent me to school and told me the best way to get on with life was to go back to work because I had math class, second period. Any of you have that? Yeah. The best way to move on with life is to go back to work. And as a Christian, he thought work, even though he would tell me like, oh, you're saved by faith. We got to be on the committees. We got to volunteer at church. We got to do the things. So there was this tension in my childhood Christianity between doing stuff and having faith. Between sending our thoughts and prayers and actually doing something about it. So I loved this text because as a kid who was raised by people who like to do work, I could understand this. I could not understand the riddle of this with the Syrophoenician woman. I could understand when James said, faith without works is dead. Because it gave me something I could go do. I think a lot of us like the idea that if we just keep on working, it will get better. But then we have this complication of our tradition and of the text, which tells us it's our faith that saves us, right? We're not saved by works. We're saved by our faith. So we end up with the same tension that I think we see in the Mark text. When Martin Luther was translating his version of the Bible, you know who Martin Luther is? Yeah, maybe? German guy, gets captured by a prince, has to translate the Bible. He makes some decisions about what books will be in the Bible. And when he's translating the Bible, he decides that 2 of the books that are in there, as he gets it, should not be in there. Do you know what those 2 books are? Revelation and James. Luther says, I doubt the inspiration of Revelation, and James is nothing but an epistle of straw. He thinks it's trash. The reason he thinks it's trash is because he spent the last several years trying to convince people that your good works are not what saves you. It's your faith that saves you. But James challenges that. Because James says it's not enough to just have faith. You have to do something with your faith. So Luther struggles with whether or not he's going to even include it in the Luther Bible. He does end up including it, which is part of why we still have it in our Protestant Bibles. But he's struggling with this passage that we read today. What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but no deeds? Can such faith save them? Suppose a brother or sister without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to them, go in peace, keep warm and well fed, but does nothing about their physical needs, what good is it? How often do we say that to our neighbors in need? That is our thoughts and prayers. We send our thoughts and prayers. But we're challenged not just to send our thoughts and prayers, not just to have a quip to the person who says they need our help, but to actually do something about it. In the same way, faith by itself is not accompanied by action, is dead. There's a brilliant guy who studies the science of hope. And he actually is at OU, is that right? And he's done a lot of work here in Enid, and he actually did a lot of work with Polly. I'm sorry she had to go I'm not sorry, she's doing Sunday school right now. But he talks about how there is a difference between hope and wishes. And the difference is that hope has action behind it. If you want to give someone hope, there has to be action. It's not enough to just say thoughts and prayers. It is enough to say thoughts and prayers, and here's what we're going to do to make it better. I think our texts today are challenging us to think about the relationship of those two things and to consider whether there are times when we have gotten too tired or are not our higher selves and just want to send the thoughts and prayers. When I can't take another mama, all I want to do is give her thoughts and prayers and send her with an iPad to go and figure it out. When we encounter the influx of new and more homeless people in our community every week, I think some of us get to the point where we're like, I don't know, I can't figure it out. I'll pray about it. Hopefully somebody else can figure it out. When we continue to have kids who don't have housing or food, we can get to the place where we're like, I can't figure this out anymore. I don't know. I'll pray about it. When we have more and more kids killed in school, And now we're on like 20 years of this stuff, I think 30 maybe. We get to the point where we say, I don't know what to do anymore. I'll send my thoughts and prayers. I'm too tired for this. I'm doing something else. And that's okay in a moment, but Jesus doesn't stay there. And James tells us not to either. It's okay to stay there for a moment, but it's not okay for us to stay there forever. Jesus does end up healing the daughter, even though he's really tired. I know that a lot of us are really tired. We're really tired of the challenges in our community, in our church, in our family lives, whatever it is. We're tired of the mamas, whatever that looks like for us. And it's okay to be tired. It's okay to be snippy. Jesus was. But then we have to do something to change it. Amen.